As a country, we are still counting the losses brought on Borno State by a devastating flood as the severity of the situation becomes clearer. President Bola Tinubu has visited Maiduguri to get a vivid understanding of the situation. After meeting with the Shehu of Borno and sympathizing with victims at the IDP camps, President Tinubu proposed a disaster relief fund through collaboration with the private sector to help rebuild the affected areas and also support the victims. The president said a small percentage of the Federation Account Allocation Committee, FAC, will be deducted as a disaster relief fund which will be used to cater for the victims. Now let's share the story of the visit by TVC News Jesse Tafida with you.
President Bola Tinubu was accompanied by the Senate President Godswill Akpabio, members of the National Assembly, and Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Abdulrahman Abdulrazak. President Tinubu is in the state to commiserate with the government and people over the floods that affected over 1 million people.
Thank you.
He disclosed that government under his administration will do its best towards bringing succor to victims of the flood disaster. This visit, according to Mr. President, is to share in the moment of grief and pain with the victims of the flood.
I'm just here to sympathize with you. I know your palace was overtaken by flood. I've had the report. This is one disaster that we must pay attention to. We will help Borno State.
President Tinubu promised to assist the state government in no small measure to bring Borno back to its feet. Jesse Tafida, TVC News, Maiduguri.
All right, BK, let's talk about the president's announcement of a disaster relief fund. Yes, better late than never, the president has visited. But do you think this visit is enough to reassure Nigerians of his commitment to addressing this issue of, this disaster management here?
Yes, as a president, you cannot hear that this sort of thing happened and not go there, despite the fact that his deputy, Kashim Shettima,
has visited,
whose house was also overtaken by flood, had been there. He felt the need to also go there because we continue to rate the extent of damage that this flood has done to this. It's a global level calamity. This thing, what happened in Borno State, yes, in Maiduguri. So the president had to go as we speak. People can't find drinking water. In many places, some places are cut off because some bridges were also destroyed. So there are communities within the state capital that you can't get to, because the bridge with which you can access them had been submerged in the flood. So how do people now move around? So people are trapped. They need support. So the president has gone there, and I'm happy that he created a disaster relief fund for these victims, and he has promised to get the private sector to support the rebuilding of the city and all that. Because look, a lot of those houses submerged. You do not even expect people to live in them.
Yeah, because the integrity...
Those houses will eventually give way, and they will kill people. So rebuilding has to take place in some places. Once the superstructure is already weakened by the deluge, you don't expect people to live in them, except you want to kill such people. But it's just a matter of time, those houses will give way. So rebuilding has to happen. Support for the people who are victims, who have lost their belongings, their life savings, who have lost their vehicles and all that, has to come. Maybe in subsequent editions, we'll be able to show how some Nigerians on their own came together and they are feeding hundreds of Maiduguri residents. You see the food packs that they placed on the ground. You see them cooking. This is what they are doing on their own. It's not as if they are rich, but they just felt that, look, this is the time that they need to support. Now, the matter is worsened by the fact that people who are not even victims.
Yeah, I was about to
according to what the governor said, they've now gone to mesh with people in the IDP camps created to bring succor to victims.
Why? Is it because of free food?
This is free food.
Because there's a lot of poverty.
There's a lot of poverty.
But what's the implication of this?
No, of course, they will then stretch the capacity of relief agencies to provide succor to the people who need it.
Who need it the most?
For people who do not need it, whose houses are in the areas,
another part of the
areas
town
unaffected by flooding. You know, those who are living on the highland, coming to collect food, collect clothing and other things meant for the people who desperately need to be assisted. It's a terrible thing. So I'm happy that the governor has said that he's going to do his best to ensure that we identify such people and focus on the people who need this help.
How do you then identify such people? Is there like a data that you need to, or you ask them questions? Because people will lie and say, oh, it affected me. You know, how do you identify such people?
Well, it's possible. It's possible. It's possible they will know those who do not live in their areas.
Okay, we'll leave the governor to...
let him sort it out.
Let him sort himself out. But what measures, in your opinion, should be put in place? You know,
I think what is needed is what Mr. President has done. I want to commend him for that, for his leadership and for his empathy. I also want to commend the Vice President because he went there, identified with the people, we worked through the fraud with them to show people that, okay, we know what you are feeling and we are with you. And what is needed basically is funds to be able to provide things for those who are affected. And by creating the disaster relief fund, and the president has done something very nice to say that some part of FAC is this money that the 3 tiers of government share every month, that a part of it will now be allocated to that.
Well, Mayor, we can't just keep pumping money. Is there like a strategy to mitigate these things from happening?
No, you cannot. There's nothing you cannot, because you see, there's climate change all over the world. So flooding is not something that is peculiar to us. All over Europe, all over America, there's floods everywhere. Austria, a disaster has been declared in some part of Austria because of the volume of the flood that they experience. So it's climate change.
How about maintenance of the dams to make sure that these kind of things don't happen?
No, it's not as if the dams are not. It's not as if the dams are not.
I'm talking about a strategy.
You know, it's not as if the dams are not maintained. That's why I said even in southern climes they have this flood. When there is excessive rain, for example, and a dam, you understand, overflow its banks, there's nothing you can do. That's a natural thing. You understand?
Or the King Katrina.
No. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that national disaster will happen. It has to do with climate change. So what we need to do is to have a system in place to be able to respond to that disaster. Yes, that's what we can do. We cannot guarantee that those things will not happen. No. It's not in our...
Will it be difficult to be proactive?
That's what I'm saying. Being proactive, what you can do in being proactive is for you to have agencies of government that can respond immediately. For now that the president, for example, is creating this disaster relief, it will be better for us to have a structure in place where the funds will be readily available and it will not be emergency funds. But even at that, because you don't know what will happen, it's an emergency. You cannot adequately plan for it. You can only plan to respond to it. Because you will not know, for example, you respond to it. Because you cannot, for example, determine the volume of rain that you will experience, for example.
But they sometimes make these forecasts we need to take those forecasts seriously.
Yes.
Okay.
When NIMET will always say, look, flooding will happen in 21 states, 170-something local governments and all that. So we have to effectively respond, because in spite of warnings, early warnings that we got, our efforts have not shown that we prepare adequately. We know that these things will happen. The irregular rainfall pattern is a problem across the globe because of the way we badly treated our habitat, which is Earth. We were warned, but people won't listen. Now we have to live with it. We have to live with it, but every country must have a very effective climate action plan.
Okay.
So what are we doing? This must serve as a lesson to us.
A lesson.
Yes, that look, these things can happen, but we have to be ready. When it happens, our response time should be faster. I'm happy with the governor of Bauchi, who has said, okay, the emergency staff in Bauchi State should move to Borno to go and help them. It's done very well, to go and help them. Okay. Those are the kind of things. I was talking about that Lagos has structures in place to respond to these things. True. So Lagos can also offer
help
yes, not just giving money, but make your expertise available.
Especially when you have a Commission of Environment that is very, very good.
Exactly.
And Soyin Tolu, Soyin Tolu has always been there and is very well switched on.
Yeah, he's always hands-on.